Well, hello there. You might want to pull up a chair. It's going to be a rough show. I was sitting here thinking about I was thinking about the deal with Israel. Israel has declared war on Palestine. So now they have all those people trapped behind a caged wall. This is how these psychopaths operate. They will always give you a punch to the back versus to the front. They're sneaky, evil psychopaths. So here they have all those caged up people in Palestine, and the goal is to cut off their electricity, cut off their food, and murder them. Wow. Really quite cowards, aren't they? They can never fight face to face. They always take the back approach, the coward approach. So then I was thinking, I've been talking about the fact that the 1%, the elites, so I will be talking about a specific group of them today, how they've all been transgender themselves and want to transgender everybody else. So I was sitting here thinking, I wonder how many people in Israel are actually Palestinians who were stolen from their Palestinian or Yemeni mothers and forced to live in Israel and then become whiter and whiter and now think that they are actually Israeli when they came from a darker skinned group being the Arab nation. So here we have this white group of elites sitting there in the middle of Arab land, pushing around the Arabs in Palestine. How did this all even happen? And are these people in Israel cheering to go after the Palestinians? Are some of them actually Palestinians themselves and they don't know this? And they're actually cheering on the demise of their own base, of their own people? And how is the Middle East going to sit there and let this white group of Zionists in Israel boss around the entire world? Well, these people, these Zionist people, I want to give you a better look at who they are. They are the people behind the transgender movement. Yes, they are the people who technically want to cut the penis off the boys and give the girls a fake penis. That is who these white Zionists are, and they have a specific agenda to go after the children while presenting themselves as these lovely people who just want nothing but to help the rest of us. That's the glory of the internet, is that we can actually find answers if we know what keywords to look for. And I've been looking into this transgender thing for a very long time. And I've also been looking into the Obama connection with the transgender movement. So I went over to Yandex and I started wondering who is exactly funding this transgender movement. And well, turns out it's a family from Chicago, the Pritzkers. Pritzkers, yeah. Family from Chicago, loaded with money, and they're coming for your children. Same people who are coming for the Palestinians. You think they're going to just get rid of the Palestinians? No, they want to get rid of all of us collectively. So be careful who you cheer for. Be very careful who you cheer for. Have you heard any of your favorite people on social media even mention that Hamas is actually a U.S. invention? Any of them mentioning that? No, of course, there's silence on who Hamas is. And that is the plan, not the bug in the system. This is how it works, okay? What you do if you want to be a successful psychopath is you convince everybody that you're the good people, and then you target certain people to get rid of them under the guise of you being the good people. So what happens is they come up with a fake attack from Hamas toward Israel, right? So now they have the perfect reason to go after Palestine, don't they now, kids? Because they can say, oh, look, Hamas attacked us first, leaving aside the fact that Palestinians have been ripped from their homes for the last 70 some years, ripped from their homes and thrown behind cage fences. And this is how psychopaths start to show their true character, because they're all upset. Look, they were tossing people out of their homes. Well, wait a minute. You guys have been tossing Palestinians out of their home for over 70 years. So now that they've turned around and turning you out of your homes, It's a big deal, right? Well, unfortunately, a lot of people are seeing this as that the Palestinians are attacking the Israelis and leaving off a 70-year history of the Israelis attacking the Palestinians and putting them behind those cage fences. So where'd they get those kids for in Israel? Well, I've talked about this before, so I'm certainly not going to go there right now. These 350 original Zionist Jews are all from incest. All of them from incest. That is who they are. They all came from incest. And from there, they've spread out to the numbers that we have today. And in order to get Israel populated, they stole the brown children from Yemen and different areas to populate Israel and to whiten them up. So there's likely a lot of people in Israel right now thinking that going after Palestine is a good idea because, after all, Palestine just attacked Israel. Well, who has been attacking Palestine all this time? Well, the people from Israel. So it's the perfect psychopath strategy. All you do is act like your enemy attacked you. So that gives you the force and the weight to go guns blowing after your enemy. So what if your enemy, the Palestinians, are behind caged walls, which makes them pretty easy to get? But that's how psychopaths play. They set up the dynamic so then they will look like they had every reason and they were just forced into being the victims. They were just forced into attacking the Palestinians. And, they're attacking them with their own children. So let me get off of this subject for right now because the people that are transgendering the children are all part of this Israel deal with attacking Palestine. It is the core group of them. So let me start with who they are. And I know this will shock some of you, but this file is in kind of a mess. So let me start off first. The goal is murder, right? Now they're starting to do some studies about this transgender business, okay? The men who receive hormone treatment as part of their gender transition are up to 95% more likely to suffer heart disease, according to a new study assessing the dubiously named gender affirming care. Published in the European Journal of Endocrinology, the study showed that transgender people were at significantly increased risk of deadly medical conditions such as heart attacks and strokes. The study relied on health data from 2,671 Danish transgender patients in their early to mid-20s over a 5-year period. The authors then compared the rate of heart disease among transgender individuals to a control population of 26,710 people who didn't identify as transgender. Transgender women who are biologically men who took estrogen to mimic female characterizations as part of their gender transition were 93% more likely to experience cardiovascular disease than control men and 73% more likely than women. Transgender men who are biologically women who receive testosterone were at a 63% higher risk of developing cardiovascular issues than control women and 2.2 times more at risk than men. Hypertension, high blood pressure, and abnormal blood fats were the leading cardiovascular complications among trans individuals involved in the study. Dr. Dorte Glinkon, lead author from Odense University Hospital in Denmark, said that hormone ingestion contributed around a third of the elevated risk for transgender men who are actually biological women. Hormone treatments such as estrogen will increase fat mass and lower lean body mass, and increased estrogen is usually associated with increased risk of autoimmune disease and inflammation. Amid safety concerns surrounding hormone therapy, multiple Republican states, such as Tennessee and Indiana, have passed legislation prohibiting or restricting these prescriptions, as well as proscribing gender transition surgeries for minors. Critics of such invasive medical interventions for children have also argued that a sprawling and profitable industry has emerged from the gender transition craze. For instance, Planned Parenthood, got those P's again, right? PP, has ramped up its offering of transgender treatments in recent years, with some locations offering services to minors. And this article is from recently, but now I think most of them are servicing minors. In 2021, Planned Parenthood has become one of the largest providers in the United States of cross-sex hormones. So how'd we get here? How'd we get here? Well, always look for how we got here, right? So I found what you're going to find on the last show, I published links to articles. And if you're, my phone isn't hooked up to Wi-Fi, so I can't look and tell you. But I did look online, and here's what I understand. If I post links, they will show up on iTunes, but they won't show up as clickable links, okay? So if you're looking for links of things that I'm posting, all you have to do is go to my website. I have a page there, podcast link, so you can look at in one page, you can look at my last 50 or so shows, okay? If you click on any of the shows from my website, you can look below and it will show you the clickable links. If you go to Spotify to listen to my podcast, the clickable links will show up there. So what I'm saying is I'm posting some links that I'm encouraging you, actually begging you to take a look at. This is how this all got going. So, whenever I get suspicious of something, as you know, the first thing I do is I head over to Yandex. What you need to realize, the entire internet is set up by key words. So go over to Yandex and start typing away things you're wondering about. Like I was wondering about who is funding this transgender care. Well, look at what I found. I will read you part of this or most of this article. I encourage you to look for yourself. This article is entitled, How Billionaire Pritzkers Became Key Backers of Bail Reform and Gender-Affirming Care. What they did recently was they switched the words around. So instead of kids wondering what gender they are, they switched it to gender affirming, meaning that, yeah, we agree with you. You're in the wrong body. Okay, so this is from Dana Kennedy, published December 2022. Depending on who you ask, members of the billionaire Pritzker, Pritzker, Pritzker family of Chicago are either the proud descendants of financial genius who are doing good by funding progressive causes, or a secretive dynasty who now back radical no-bail laws and the transgender movement. The most prominent member of the family today is Governor J.B. Pritzker, a longtime Democratic activist and supporter whose net worth is around $3.6 billion. His sister, Penny, another P, 63, was co-chairman, she might be a little bit older, of President Barack Obama's presidential campaign, and later became his secretary for the Department of Commerce. Now, you see, you start to notice the Pritzkers come out of Chicago. Barack Obama came out of Chicago. If you look at my website, look at the transgender section, and I kind of have it into sections. The top section is going to be things like Kamala Harris showing her penis flapping in the wind, and a lot of details you want to pay attention to, along with all of the horrible people in charge of things, these women on the screen who are really men with their awful neck surgeries and stuff. But down toward the bottom of the page, I have all the Obama stuff. with the fact they made up those kids aren't even his. So Obama was really created. And I believe he got created by the Pritzkers. But let me keep reading along here. So his sister, Penny, the P, was co-chair of former President Barack Obama's presidential campaign and later became his secretary for the Department of Commerce. This despite her once serving on the board of Superior Bank, which the Pritzkers bought with $460 million in tax credits from the federal government. The bank later collapsed after being one of the first to traffic in subprime mortgages. JB's cousin, Jennifer Pritzker, 72, a twice married parent of 3 who was born James Pritzker, is along with Martine Rothblatt, that's Rothblatt. So we have Jennifer Pritzker and Martine Rothblatt, one of the world's only 2 openly transgender billionaires. Now, keep in mind, all of the 1% are transgender. They're just acting like a couple of them have come out, right? So this Jennifer Pritzker retired as a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army in 2001 after a 27-year military career and transitioned to be female in 2013. So this Jennifer Pritzker is a very ugly man and now an even uglier woman. That was just my comment. I'll keep reading. Unlike the rest of her family, who have long been die-hard Democrats, Jennifer was a loyal Republican and reliable donor to the GOP until she became disillusioned with the party in 2019 over what she saw as its anti-transgender agenda. Anthony Pritzker, cousin to JB and Jennifer, runs the Pritzker Group private equity firm and was the subject of a mini scandal when he and his wife bought and then demolished a landmark Bel Air home, irking their neighbors when they built a massive mega mansion in its place. He and his wife sold the property for almost $22 million in 2012 after finishing the construction. Finally, Tom Pritzker, 72, the governor's cousin and CEO of the Pritzker organization, recently made headlines when he tried unsuccessfully to prevent the publishing of court documents relating to the late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Tom was first named in documents unsealed in New York in 2019 as one of the number of prominent men, including former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, whom Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre said she was directed to have sex with, the Miami Herald report at the time. Pritzker and the others all denied the allegations. Well, depends on how you define sex, right? Because Virginia Giuffre is also transgender, so this thing is kind of a hot mess, right? Governor Pritzker, whom everyone calls JB, but whose real name is J. Robert, has been the governor of Illinois since 2019, and according to a number of people who know him, is expected to run for president in 2024 if Joe Biden declines to try for a second term. I would not be surprised if he goes straight to the top, says Sugar Rathborn, a Chicago socialite, author, and longtime Pritzker family friend, told the Post. I know it's something JB really wants. And he, like all the Pritzkers, follows what is important to him and not what the public thinks of him. The Pritzkers have never sought publicity. They've always been driven to achieve a certain kind of American success, which involves making money. But Governor Pritzker is making headlines now for signing into law a controversial criminal justice bill called SAFET Act, which goes into effect in Chicago's Cook County on January the 1st, 2023. So that's already in effect, eliminating cash bail for those charged from that date forward. Judges will decide who remains locked up while awaiting trial, rather than requiring defendants to pay bail to be released. I'm pleased to bring an end to a system where wealthy, violent offenders can buy their way out of jail, while less fortunate nonviolent offenders wait in jail for trial, Pritzker said at the time. Advocates and lawmakers came together and put in hours of work to strengthen and clarify this law, uphold our commitment to equity, and keep people safe. New York and New Jersey have passed bail reform laws that do away with most cash bail for pretrial detentions, but the new Illinois law eliminates cash bail entirely. So I'm going to scan down here a little bit. Cash bail isn't the focus today, but Governor Pritzker's high-profile ambitions mark a departure for members, excuse me, of a multi-billion-dollar family empire who made it their business to stay out of the spotlight ever since the Jewish patriarch Naftali ben Yavap Pritzker immigrated to Chicago from a ghetto in Kiev, Ukraine, at the age of 10 in 1881. He made nickels selling newspapers on the Chicago streets, putting himself through law school, and founded the law firm Pritzker and Pritzker. I love these backstories. I do agree he came from a Jewish family, right? This is who these people are. They're Zionists. Don't confuse them with the regular Jews. Nicholas's son, Abram, Harry, and Jack all joined the family law firm, but eventually branched out into business, using family money to invest in local real estate companies and other firms. They made the family law practice into an in-house anchor for the deal-making that fueled their burgeoning family empire. What do I keep telling you? It's always those lawyers and the doctors and the religious people, right? But most Pritzker observers say Nicholas's grandson, Jay Pritzker, which is the one we're talking about today, Jay or J.B. Pritzker, was the financial wizard who turned the family into a powerhouse dynasty. Jay Pritzker entered the University of Chicago as a freshman at 14 and graduated from Northwestern at 19 with a Bachelor of Science degree. He later graduated from Northwestern Law School in 1947 at 25. Oh, this has to be this was their father, because Jay, let me see, I was born in 1951, so yeah, this was their father. So JB's father's name was Jay. The story goes that Jay, who had a Rain Man type of financial acumen, decided to buy the first of what would become the International Hyatt hotel chain in 1957 while drinking a cup of coffee at Fast Eddie's at LAX. Pritzker noticed that Fast Eddie's was very busy for a coffee shop, and the hotel in which it was founded had no vacancies. The hotel, which happened to be for sale, was named after its owner, Hyatt von Dehen, D-E-H-N. Pritzker made an offer on the spot, scribbling $2.2 million on a napkin. He and his brother went on to build a big family corporation called Marmon, M-A-R-M-O-N, now a Berkshire Hathaway company, that had interest in casinos in Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and Atlantic City, along with Ticketmaster, Braniff Airlines, Levitt's Furniture, pharmaceutical companies, cruise ship lines, janitorial supply firms, and a maker of circumcision devices. An acquaintance of the Pritzker family who did not want to be identified remembers walking into a business event years ago with Jay. The Pritzker family exemplifies how private interests can weaponize numerous industrial complexes on a local, national, and international level. He took one look at the group and said, "There's no money to be made here," turned around and left, the friend told the Post. That was Jay. He died in 1999 at age 76. Today, the Pritzker name is visible all over Chicago, including the J. Pritzker Pavilion, the University of Chicago's Pritzker School of Medicine, the Pritzker family's Children's Zoo, and more. The Pritzkers have the sense of being noble, but noblesse oblige. They want to make genuine change for the best for the community. They have a 24-hour work ethic, whether it's their business or their charities, but they are very private. They've always played it very close to the vest. What separates them from a lot of other dynasties is that they have moved very quietly and under the radar as much as possible. But the Pritzkers have recently come under fire for how they're using their money. A lengthy investigation by Tablet magazine earlier this year, and I will try to track that down, that article, and post it below. So, a lengthy investigation by Tablet magazine earlier this year detailed the labyrinth funneling of millions of Pritzker family money into universities, medical schools, gender clinics, and nonprofits in support of transgenderism and what is called gender-affirming medical care, the controversial treatment that critics say encourages youth to undergo transition surgery or take puberty blockers without first going through adequate therapy. And also on that same page over my website, if you scroll down toward the end part, there are some videos there that will show you exactly what these surgeries are. I have watched them all. They are gruesome. Fair warning, very gruesome to watch. And none of them work. These kids all end up crippled. So yeah, if you scroll down, you will find what they're doing to the children. And it is something that I need to avoid right now because it is so brutal. Totally brutal. So, okay, so Governor Pritzker has also signed off on transgender legislation, in essence, making gender affirming care the law in Illinois. In 2019, the state's Medicaid program began covering gender affirming surgeries for its members. Last year, he also passed the Youth and Health Safety Act, a new sex education bill that follows the standards of a left-wing interest group called SIECUS, SIECUS, whose current standards call for teaching 5-year-olds about gender identity and instructing 8-year-olds on how hormone blockers prevent puberty in transgender identifying preteens. Jennifer Pritzker's personal foundation, Tawani, TAWANI, leverages her chunk of the family's vast fortune to make pro-transgender grants to universities, the ACLU, GLAAD, GLAAD, and smaller activist groups. Even the University of Chicago's Pritzker School of Medicine now offers a class claiming to teach a new generation of doctors how to fight misinformation in the medical field, including alleged falsehoods about gender-affirming hormone care. Well, I've never gone to their universities and studied like they have, but I am kind of an expert on this transgender stuff, and I suggest you scroll down and take a look for yourself because nothing good about any of this stuff, okay? Activist Kay Yang, who worked at an LGBT center in upstate New York in 2012, said she traced the early gender ideology funding at the center, some of which paid for her job, to groups like GLAAD, one of the many left-wing gay rights groups that Jennifer Pritzker's foundation has been donated to. Yang said she eventually quit her position, which she claims entailed going into high schools and middle schools to indoctrinate students in gender ideology before there was much national awareness of it, and now runs a site called Stop Female Erasure. And I have a link to her site also, I'll post below. The Pritzkers are teaching children and adults they can be opposite sex, and these surgeries can be safe and effective, Yang 36 told the Post. They are in the business of social change. There is a lot of money from gender ideology, but they are erasing women and medicalizing children in the process. And this is why I think the reason these people hate women like they do is because they didn't have a mother, right? So they have carried the general hatred toward all of us women through their wicked, evil, psychopathic lives. And I will continue reading. The Pritzker family exemplifies how private interests can weaponize numerous industrial complexes, medical, military, and nonprofit complexes. They are weaponizing them on a local, national, and international level. Dan Proffitt, a conservative Chicago political commentator now based in Florida, who co-hosts a talk show on AM 560, got a campaign contribution from Jennifer Pritzker, and this was before Jennifer transitioned, for his own gubernatorial campaign in 2010. Proffitt ran as a Republican but lost in the primary. Proffitt said he knows the person many still call the colonel well, because remember, Pritzker was a colonel in the military. In 2022, Proffitt organized a $35 million super PAC to fight J.B. Pritzker's gubernatorial bid and support his challenger, Darren Bailey. But Proffitt remains sympathetic to Jennifer. I spoke to him a lot, Proffitt told the Post, referring to Jennifer and using her birth pronouns. I think Jennifer is a philosophical and idealistic person for the most part. I know they say that the transgender industry is supposed to be a $5 billion industry, but I don't think she's in it for that. I think the others are, but just in a transactional way. They want power and influence, and the transgender stuff is in the leftist zeitgeist. They are classic politicians, Proffitt added. They're going to where the energy is. They want to be the primary financiers of left-wing activism. So all roads for leftism lead back to the Pritzkers. Repeated calls to numerous Pritzker organizations, including the governor's office, were not returned. So, I think it was the Pritzkers who introduced Obama to the world. And remember, Obama and Michelle or Michael were likely at the time a gay couple, okay? Because that's a story they tell, right? But I'm not sure that story is really true. I'm not sure that story is really true. I think they were throwing out Michelle and showing us her penis and stuff, and then acting like it's a big surprise, big secret. I don't know. I think that it's all a big trick, right? Pritzker introduced Obama, the neophyte state senator, to the Ladies Who Lunch, that's really what they call themselves, on Chicago's Gold Coast. Obama got lunch, gold, and better. An introduction to Robert Rubin. Rubin is a former Secretary of the Treasury, former chairman of Goldman Sachs, and former co-chairman of Citibank. Even atheists recognize Rubin as a supreme deity of Wall Street. Rubin opened the door to finance industry vaults for Obama. Extraordinarily for a Democrat, Obama in 2008 raised 3 times as much from bankers as his Republican opponent. And I think it's this person, Rubin, that also gave him the list of people to hire, because they have this other quote here. So what did Citibank's Rubin get for showering Obama with gold? Obama agreed to take care of Rubin's poodles, Larry Summers and Timothy Geithner. They became Obama's first cabinet picks, Summers as economic czar and Geithner as his Tsarina Secretary of the Treasury. So, I don't know. I think this is another article, so let me read it. Besides showing the corrosive effects of money upon our political system, what makes this pick especially appalling is Pritzker's well-known anti-union, anti-working people stance. It also shows how quickly, casually, and almost pathologically easy it is for an ambitious Democratic politician to dispose of ordinary people once the cameras are no longer there. Yes, Obama really, he stood up there yelling for peace, right? And went on to murder as many as he could in the Middle East. I'm going to be reading from another article that I will, of course, also post below. And this is a pretty good one. It is called, "Who Are the Rich White Men Institutionalizing Transgender Ideology?" And I think this is the article from the young lady I was just speaking about. As an environmental activist who was deplatformed from a speaking venue by trans activists in 2013, I developed curiosity about the power of this group to force this development. A year later, when Time magazine announced a transgender tipping point on its cover, I had already begun to examine the money behind the transgender project. I have watched all women's safe spaces, universities, and sports open their doors to any man who chose to identify as a woman. And people like that Matt Walsh who run around saying, "What is a woman?" Well, Matt Walsh is also transgender, okay? So looky, kids, use those eyes. Whereas transgender men who identify as trans women are at the forefront of this project. Women who identify as trans men seem silent and invisible. I was astonished that such a huge cultural change as the opening of sex-protected spaces was happening at such a meteorical pace and without consideration for women and girls' safety, deliberation, or public debate. Concurrent with these rapid changes, I witnessed an overhaul of the English language with new pronouns and a near tyrannical assault on those who did not use them. Laws mandating new speech were passed. Laws overriding biological sex with the amorphous concept of gender identity are being instituted now. People who speak openly about these changes can find themselves, their families, and their livelihoods threatened. These elements, along with media saturation of the issue, had me wondering, is this really a civil rights issue for a tiny part of the population with body dysphoria, or is there a hidden agenda with moneyed interests that we are not seeing? This article can only begin to graze the surface of this question. But considering transgenderism has basically exploded in the middle of capitalism, which is notorious for subsuming social justice movements, there is value in beginning this examination. Who is funding the transgender movement? I found exceedingly rich white men with enormous cultural influence are funding the transgender lobby and various transgender organizations. These include, but are not limited to, Jennifer Pritzker, a male who identifies as transgender; George Soros; Martin Robloff, a male who that was the other billionaire, Rothblatt, Rothblatt. So you're looking for the Pritzkers, and these Rothblatt people are supposedly the only two transgender billionaires. Well, maybe some of these new billionaires they brought in during this COVID thing, because they made billionaires all over the world with China and everywhere else. Maybe some of the new billionaires still have their penis intact. Maybe. Okay. So there's a whole group of them. Martine Rothblatt, Tim Gill, who identifies as a gay man, Drummond Pike, Warren and Peter Buffett, John Stryker, who also identifies as a gay man, Mark Bonham, who identifies as a gay man, and Rick Waldman, a deceased gay man whose philanthropy is still LGBT oriented. Most of these billionaires fund the transgender lobby and organization through their own organizations, including corporation. Separating transgender issues from LGBT infrastructure is not an easy task. All the wealthiest donors have been funding LGBT institutions before they became LGBT oriented. And only in some instances are money earmarked specifically for transgender issues. Some of these billionaires fund the LGBT through their myriad of companies, multiplying their contributions many times over in ways that are also difficult to track. These funders often go through anonymous funding organizations such as Tides Foundation, TIDES Foundation, founded and operated by Pike. Large corporations, philanthropists, and organizations can send enormous sums of money to the Tides Foundation, specify the direction the funds are to go, and have the funds go to their destination anonymously. Tides Foundation creates a legal firewall and tax shelter for foundation and funds political campaigns, often using legally dubious tactics. These men and others, including pharmaceutical companies and the U.S. government, are sending millions of dollars of LGBT causes. Overall reported global spending on LGBT is now estimated at $424 million. From 2003 to 2013, reported funding for transgender issues increased more than eightfold, growing at threefold the increase of LGBTQ funding overall, which quadrupled from 2003 to 2012. And keep in mind, they claim that there's only 1% of the population that identify as transgender, right? 424 million is a lot of money. Is it enough to change laws, uproot language, and force new speech on the public, to censor, to create an atmosphere of threat for those who do not comply with gender ideology? It seems obvious now to look at the money behind transgenderism. Many new markets have opened because of it. The first gender clinic for children opened in Boston in 2007. In the past 10 years, more than 30 clinics for children with purported gender dysphoria has arisen in the United States alone, the largest serving 725 patients. Over the past decade, there has been an explosion in transgender medical infrastructure across the United States and world to treat transgender people. In addition to gender clinics proliferating across the United States, hospital wings are being built for specialized surgeries, and many medical institutions are clamoring to get on board with the new developments. Doctors are being trained in cadaver symposiums across the world in all manner of surgeries related to transgender individuals, including phalloplasty, vaginoplasty, facial feminization surgery, urethral procedures, and more. And I have all of the information on my website. I hope you will go and take a look. More and more American corporations are covering transgender surgeries, drugs, and other expenses. Endocrinologists seeking the fountain of youth in hormones for more than a generation, and the subsequent earnings for marketing these hormones are still on a quest for gold. Puberty blockers are another growing market. The plastic surgery arm of medicine is staged for an infusion of cash as well as organ transplants, especially womb transplants for men identifying as women who may want future pregnancies. These surgeries are already being practiced on animals, and the first successful womb implant from a deceased female donor to another female has already been a success. Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, I'll keep reading. Biogenetics is poised to be the investment of the future, says Rothblatt, who has headed a massive pharmaceutical corporation and is now heavily invested in biogenetics and transplants. Transgenderism has certainly made its way into the American marketplace, so it seems important to consider the implications of this as we pass laws regarding transgender individuals and our civil liberties. Transgenderism sits square in the middle of the medical industrial complex, which is by some estimates even bigger than the military industrial complex. Who works to institutionalize transgender ideology? Much more important than funds going directly to the LGBT lobby and organizations, only a fraction of which trickles down to assist people who identify as transgender, is the money invested by the men mentioned above, governments and technology and pharmaceutical corporations to institutionalize and normalize transgenderism as a lifestyle choice. They are shaping the narrative about transgenderism and normalizing it within the culture using their funds methods. This can hardly be a coincidence when there is very little, when the very thing absolutely essential to those transitions are pharmaceuticals and technology. This article will use the Pritzker family as a case study, both to reduce length and because they are emblematic of how this works. Those funding trans organizations and normalizing transgenderism are channeling funds in the same way and invested in the same medical infrastructure. This can hardly be a coincidence when the very thing absolutely essential to those transitioning are pharmaceuticals and technology. It is also important to note that though the trans lobby has sewn itself to the LGB umbrella, LGP people as such are not lifelong medical patients. And that's what's going on. What's happening is some of these girls are thinking that they should identify as men, and they're going out and getting those fake penises, which is called phalloplasty. And then what's happening is they get into a gay relationship. So they likely were gay to begin with, right? So what they're doing is this is becoming so confusing for so many people. So let me keep reading. The Pritzkers, as an American family of philanthropic billionaires worth approximately 29 billion, because there's a whole bunch of people in this freak show called the Pritzkers, 29 billion, whose fortune was gestated by Hyatt hotels and nursing homes. They now have massive investments in the medical industry complex. Examining just a few of the Pritzkers in this article will give you some indication of their reach and influence as a family, and especially as regards the transgender project and their relationship to the medical industrial complex. As you read, remember, transitioning individuals are medical patients for life. And the Pritzker family are not an anomaly in their funding trajectory or investments in the medical industrial complex. Jennifer Pritzker, once a family man and a decorated member of the armed forces, Jennifer Pritzker now identifies as transgender. He has made transgenderism a high note in philanthropic funding through his Taiwani Foundation, TAWANI Foundation. He is one of the largest contributors to transgender causes and, with his family, an enormous influence in the rapid institutionalization of transgenderism. Some of the organizations Jennifer owns and funds are especially noteworthy to examining the rapid induction of transgender ideology into medical, legal, and educational institutions. Pritzker, and that's Jennifer, owns Squadron Capital, an acquisitions corporation with a focus on medical technology, medical devices, and orthopedic implants, and the Taiwani Foundation, a philanthropic organization with a grants focus on gender and human sexuality. Pritzker sits on the leadership council of the Program of Human Sexuality at the University of Minnesota, to which he also committed $6.5 million over the past decade. Among many other organizations and institutions Pritzker funds are Lurie Children's Hospital, a medical center for gender nonconforming children, serving 400 children in Chicago, the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago, a chair of transgender studies at the University of Victoria, which is the first of its kind, and the Mark S. Bonham Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at the University of Toronto. He also funds the American Civil Liberties Union, and his family funds Planned Parenthood, two significant organizations for institutionalizing female erasure language and supporting for transgender causes. Planned Parenthood also recently decided to get into the transgender medical market. Jennifer Pritzker funds strategically, as does his family, by giving to universities that become beholden to his ideology, whose students go on to spread gender ideology by writing pro-trans articles in medical journals and elsewhere. Jennifer's aunt and uncle, John and Lisa Pritzker, gave $25 million to the University of Southern California at San Francisco for a center of children's psychiatry. Jennifer likewise funds hospitals and medical schools where the alumni go on to create transgender specialties in LGBT medical centers, even though lesbians, gays, and bisexuals don't need specialized medical services. Here are just some of the current activities of Pritzker-funded medical school alumni and recipients of Pritzker money. James Heckman founded the LGBT Medical Center in Lakewood, Ohio. David T. Rubin sits on the advisory board of the CVS Caremark, the largest pharmaceutical chain in the United States. CVS acquired Target department stores pharmacies in 2015. Target, of course, is the site of a major social controversy about unisex bathrooms and is a corporate funder of the trans-pushing human rights campaign activist group. Lauren Schechter is the author of the first surgical atlas for transgender surgery, author of pro-trans journals, was awarded for legal advocacy of transgenders, performs reconstructive surgeries, and is director of trans feminine conferences sponsored by the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. I've talked about these people forever. WPATH is what you're looking for. This is what they all talk about. They all say, oh, according to the World Professional Association of Transgender Health. That group was just created flat out of the air, okay? It was created by a person who connects with, who was that person in Indiana? Well, right after the war, they published a book about sexuality so they could teach us about sex, right? Well, the book is so controversial and it's still being published today. In the book, they have graphs and charts of how long children like infants, like tiny little infants, how long it took them to be masturbated. This is who these people are, okay? And that's the people who started this world path, okay? So there's another person, Robert Garfola, a gay man, is director of the St. Lurie Children's Gender Clinic, head of the hospital's division of adolescent medicine, and a professor of pediatrics at Northwest University, which J.B. Pritzker, whom we will meet later, funds. Benjamin Breyer, Breyer, is chief of urology. You know what I don't understand? Why aren't people standing and screaming outside these people's homes? Why? Where are the pitchforks? Benjamin Breyer, Breyer, is chief of urology at San Francisco General Hospital and a professor at the University of California at San Francisco, specializing in transgender surgery. Nicholas Matte, M-A-T-T-A, teaches at the Mark Bonham Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at the University of Toronto, with a specialty in queer studies. I lost him. Give me a second here. Mark Hyman. Yeah, these people, Baylor College of Medicine is on the receiving end of the Pritzker School of Medicine's pipeline programs for people studying to be doctors. Baylor is where the nation's first child was born from a uterus transplant. Oh, brother. A child was not born from a uterus transplant, okay? Let's just get that part straight. So anyway, so they said the first child was born from a uterus transplant as part of an experimental program funding the procedure for 10 women in order to get uterus transplants. Ultimately, health insurance and taxpayers will pay for rather than being relegated to elective infertility. Yeah, what they're doing is these people are infertile, so they're looking for different solutions, right? Well, be careful what you're looking for. Jennifer Pritzker has also helped normalize transgender individuals in the military with a $1.35 million grant to the Palm Center, a University of California, Santa Barbara-based LGBT think tank, to create research validating military transgenderism. He has also donated $25 million to Norwich University in Vermont, a military academy and the first school to launch a Naval Reserve Officers Training Corps program. Pritzker's funding is not confined to the United States, but reaches other countries via WPATH, W-P-A-T-H. Blaze that word into your brains. WPATH, W-P-A-T-H. In conferences for physicians studying transgender surgery and funding of international universities. Let's talk about Penny Pritzker. We were just talking about Jennifer or J.B. Pritzker. Penny Pritzker, cousin to Jennifer Pritzker. Penny Pritzker served as President Obama's Council for Jobs and Competitiveness and Economic Recovery Advisor Board. She was national co-chair of Obama for America 2012 and national finance chair of Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. To say she was influential in getting President Obama elected would be an understatement. And that's why, now, I'm not part of these groups. They don't talk to me, but I would bank a whole lot that these Pritzkers were the ones who invented Obama. To say she was influential in getting President Obama elected would be an understatement. As Obama's Secretary of Commerce, Penny Pritzker, helped create the National Institute for Innovation in Manufacturing Biopharmaceuticals by facilitating an award of $70 million from the U.S. Department of Commerce, the first funding of its kind. Obama made transgenderism a pet issue of his administration, holding a meeting at the White House, the first ever for transgenderism. The administration quietly applied the power of the executive branch to make it easier for transgender people to alter their passports, get cross-sex treatments at Veterans Administration facilities, and access public school restrooms and sports programs based on gender ideology. These are just a few of the transgender-specific policy shifts of Obama's presidency. Soros and Gill are two other major transgender movement funders who generated millions of dollars to get Obama elected. And Stryker was one of the top 5 contributors to Obama's campaign. Under Obama and President George W. Bush, the federal government, your tax dollars at work, also funded the Tides Foundation for $82.7 million, which in turn donated $47.2 million to LGBTQ issues over the last 2 decades. Penny has funded the Harvard School of Public Health, and with her husband, through their mutual foundation, the Pritzker-Trauber Family Foundation, are funding early childhood initiatives as well as providing scholarships to Harvard University medical students. The Boston Children's Hospital Gender Management Services Wing physicians are all affiliated with the Harvard Medical School. Penny Pritzker also sat on the board at Harvard, where student life offices teach students, many of who go on to lead U.S. institutions, that there are more than 2 sexes. J.B. Pritzker. Penny Pritzker's brother, J.B. Pritzker, is an American venture capitalist, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and business owner. He is co-founder of the Pritzker Group, a private investment firm that invests in digital technology and medical companies, including Clinical Innovations, which has a global presence. Clinical Innovations is one of the largest medical device companies, and in 2017 acquired Runner Medical, another significant medical group offering innovative products in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. We have to look at why this is framed as a civil rights issue when the main issue seems to be capital and social engineering. JB provided seed funding for Matter, Matter, a startup incubator for medical technology based in Chicago. He also sits on the board of directors at his alma mater, Duke University, where they are making advances in crypto-preserving women's ovaries. JB is running for governor. This is articles from a couple of years ago. JB is running for governor of Illinois in 2018 and put $25 million into an Obama administration public-private initiative totaling $1 billion for early childhood education. JB and his wife, M.K. Pritzker, donated $100 million to Northwestern University School of Law, partly for scholarships and partly for the school's social justice and childhood law work. We have to look at why this is framed as a civil rights issue when the main issues seem to be capital and social engineering. There doesn't seem to be a sphere of influence that is untouched by Pritzker money, from early childhood education and universities to law, medical institutions, the LGBT lobby and organizations, politics, and the military. If they were the only ones funding the institutionalization of transgender ideology, they would still be fantastically influential, but they are joined by other exceedingly wealthy, influential white men who also have ties to the pharmaceutical and medical industries. Along with support by pharmaceutical giants such as Janssen Therapeutics and the Health Foundation of a Johnson & Johnson founder, Vivi, Pfizer, Abbott Laboratories, Bristol Myers Squibb Company, and Boehringer Pharmaceuticals, major technological companies including Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Intel, Dell, and IBM are also funding the transgender movement. And I can say with confidence that the people leading all these companies are, in fact, transgender themselves. And you will find most of their pictures over at my website. In February 2017, Apple, Microsoft, Google, IBM, Yelp, PayPal, and 53 other mostly tech corporations signed onto an amicus brief pushing the U.S. Supreme Court to prohibit schools from keeping private facilities for students designated according to sex. As these corporations were pushing for transgender bathrooms, they were fighting President Trump's travel ban and immigration policies. In reporting the incident simultaneously, CNN News made the obvious connection between the corporation's interest in the immigration ban and commerce, quoting a legal brief signed by the companies that said, "It is inflicting significant harm on American business, innovation, and growth." It made no such equivalent connection for the corporation's interest in transgender rights. The obvious question would be, why do they care? The obvious answer is money. Yes, but I believe they also care because they're psychopaths, right? I'll continue reading. It behooves us all to look at what the real investment is in prioritizing a lifetime of antibody medical treatments for a minuscule part of the population. Melding this manufactured medical issue with civil rights frame entails the continuance and growth of the problem. Transgenderism is framed as both a medical problem for the gender dysphoria of children who need puberty blockers and are being groomed for a lifetime of medicalization, and as a brave and original lifestyle choice for adults. Martine Roblov suggests we are all transhuman, that changing our bodies by removing healthy tissue and organs and ingesting cross-sex hormones over the course of a lifetime can be likened to wearing makeup, dyeing our hair, or getting a tattoo. If we are all transhuman, expressing that could be a never-ending saga of body-related consumerism. They did the same trick with the word psychopaths. What they did was Robert Hare went to a NASA meeting and decided to do research into psychopaths. Well, I got news for you. Bob Hare is a psychopath himself. So, what did he do? Well, years ago, he lined up with that guy who wrote the book about goats. Remember, goats always come into the picture, right? Some guy wrote a book about goats. I'll think of his name in a minute. Anyway, so he wrote a book called The Man Who Stares at Ghosts or something like that. Anyway, so he went on to TED Talks. And what the agenda was there was he would talk about psychopaths and stuff, and then he would say, "Oh yeah, but John was his name. Let me go look it up real quick here." Anyway, so what he would do was talk about psychopaths, okay? And then he would say, "Well, but we're all psychopaths." No, I'm sorry. We're not all fucking psychopaths, okay? Same way they're trying to say, "Oh, but we're all transhumans, so this stuff is all okay." No, it is not true. Women cannot become men. I'll continue reading. The massive medical and technological infrastructure expansion for a tiny but growing fraction of the population with gender dysphoria, along with the money being funneled to this project by those heavily invested in the medical and technology industries, seems to make sense only in the context of expanding markets for changing the human body. Trans activists are already clamoring for a change from gender dysphoria to gender incongruence in the next revision to the International Register of Mental Diagnostic Codes. See, here's the thing: they used to have in their the books they use, the DSM-5. They used to have gender dysphoria as a mental illness. Well, you can't have it both ways now, can you? If you're so mentally ill that you're seeing a psychiatrist over your body issues, is this really the person that you should get to agree to massive surgeries that are going to disrupt their life for the rest of their lives? So you really think that somebody who identifies as having some psychiatric difficulties and is in fact seen as a psychiatrist, you really think that person should be the person who should agree to having their body ripped from head to stern? I'll continue reading. Body diversity appears to be the core issue, not gender dysphoria. That and unmooring people from their biology via language distortions to normalize altering human biology. Institutionalizing transgender ideology does just this. This ideology is being promoted as a civil rights issue by wealthy white men with enormous influence who stand to personally benefit from their political activities. It behooves us all to look at what the real investment is in prioritizing a lifetime of antibody medical treatments for a minuscule part of the population, building an infrastructure for them, and institutionalizing the way we perceive ourselves as human beings before human becomes a quaint concept of the past. I'm just about done here, so I'm going to be reading you one more piece here about these Pritzkers. There's quite a bit out there. Um, I would encourage you to go over to Yandex and look for yourself. I'm sharing my work so you can form your own opinions. I'm not trying to shove off my opinions on the rest of you. Hopefully, I'm spending my time effectively, and hopefully, you are looking further for yourself. That's my hope. Family fortune. In 1995, Jay Pritzker, the co-founder of Hyatt, stepped down and Thomas Pritzker took control of the Pritzker organization. When the former, which is Jay Pritzker, died in 1999, the family split the business into 11 pieces worth $1.4 billion each and chose to settle a lawsuit from two family members who apparently received $500 million each in 2005. By 2011, the dissolution had been completed and the cousins had gone their separate ways, with some pursuing business and others philanthropic or artistic ventures. According to Inside Philanthropy, there are many Pritzkers with many different vehicles or foundations for their philanthropic giving. It started with, and here we're back at the 1800s again, Jacob Pritzker. He was born 1831. Nicholas Pritzker, 1871, died 1957. Nicholas Pritzker was a Jewish immigrant from Kiev, founder of Pritzker and Pritzker law firm in Chicago, and cousin of the philosopher Lev Shestov, Shestov. Harry Pritzker, lawyers. Yeah, there's a whole list of them here. And well, now just to be very clear, and they also have a list that Pritzker family fortunes. They all have around Karen Thomas and Jean. They have the 5 billions. They've all got they've all got billions. Okay. Um, Legacy: A. in Pritzker Elementary School, J. Pritzker Pavilion at Chicago's Millennium Park, Pritzker Architectural Prize, Pritzker Family Children's Zoo at the Lincoln Park Zoo, Pritzker College Prep, a campus of the Noble Network of Charter High Schools, Pritzker Institute of Biomedical Science. Yeah, these Pritzker people are really into wanting to change this to look more like them, right? Well, I got to tell you, that I am going to be closing off here because these Pritzker freaks have all been fighting because the J person who started this thing also had a son named Jay. That's JB, right? His three sons, Jay, Doug, Donald, and Robert, expanded the family's wealth by purchasing holdings, including the Marmon, Marmon Group. But with such a large fortune, there was bound to be some hard decisions. And most of the 2000s were spent arguing over trust, which eventually led them to divide up the fortune among the 13 family members, 11 of whom are billionaires. So, yes, I believe if I was to look for a source of how this got started and their main guy, Obama, I would be pretty clearly looking at the Pritzkers. No bueno. And I have, in fact, looked at the majority of the 1%. Go look at my website. So I'm not just wildly saying this. The 1% are, in fact, transgender themselves. And then there's this other weird thing going on that I know of several people from when I worked in Silicon Valley who are now married to transgender women who are actually men. And I think that's also a thing that might be happening with these people who are clinging on to the 1%, right? There's a lot of people that they gave favors to during COVID, a lot of people who they added to the billionaire class. But I think there's only one billionaire class that's going to count in the end of this game board, right? They're going to protect their own. So I'm sure that the 1% are all transgender. Now, are all the people they have added to their group in the last years also transgender? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe some of them are like the people that I used to know in Silicon Valley who married a transgender. That's probably a way you get yourself and stay into that club, right? But keep in mind, I would consider those people the clinger honors, right? Sure, they got billions of dollars and they're kind of part of that billionaire club now, but I'm not sure that all of them are actually transgender themselves. What I'm saying is they may be also marrying transgenders, they may be transgendering their own children, but I can say with confidence, the 1% are transgender themselves. So that makes them want to try to toy with the rest of us. And go look at pictures of those Pritzkers, the one who says that she is a woman now, the one who was in the military. He looks like a very ugly woman, okay? They want us to think that transgender people are always going to be very obvious to us, that the transgender women will always look like ugly men trying to look like women, right? That's what they want us to think. But look at those pictures until you really tune your eyes in. A lot of them at first glance look like the rest of us, right? But then you start to look with age, they start to fall to pieces. You know, the fake women all get those super shiny faces from the estrogen levels and stuff, and they get those huge pores because they're really men. So they're doing an incredibly poor job, but this is the last chapter. So what's the goal? I don't know. It seems like these Jews, specifically the Ashkenazi Jews, are over there right now getting ready to annihilate the people in Palestine. How's that going to work out? Well, they're probably going to get a lot of people on their side just by this simple trick of they attacked themselves. You attack yourself and then act like you're the victim, and then you can go and murder the rest of the people, right? This is basic elementary kind of psychology that they're using on the rest of us. So what's your choice? You're going to stand by these people taking it for the children? Anytime these people mention their concern for the children, everybody should collectively start throwing up. Blah! They are liars and they are psychopaths. They are not here in peace. They are not here to help any of us. Please get prepared. Please get organized. A lot of people are going to need everybody else to behave like people and stop behaving like them. They have the majority of people surrounding us, all in the money game, all wanting to act like many psychopaths. Please realize if this is the last chapter, now I don't know this for a fact, but I believe it's true. If this is in fact the last chapter, is this who